Split Tube Media and the Cinesthesia podcast present a special daily October podcast. Hell to the king.
Jason, have you read Stephen King's books? Have you read Stephen King's books?
King movie, a Stephen King movie. King movie, a Stephen King movie. King movie, a Stephen King movie.
I have done my best to scare the shit out of you guys.
So much. I'm crying while I say it.
We haven't even started and we're making our guest cry. Hello and welcome back to a special October daily edition of the Cinesthesia podcast, Hell to the King. Guys, we made it a week. This is episode 7. There's only 3 more weeks to go, and then we get to kill ourselves.
Well, I thought we got to sleep after a week, Jason.
Sleep forever.
Sleep is for the week. That's what they always say. Sleep is for the 1 week mark.
There's a third laugh in the mix. Joining
me.
Jim and Jason tonight is Amanda Gotera, part-time filmmaker, full-time animation compositor.
And my friend.
Filmmaker by night, animation compositor by day, allergic to many things, I'm assuming, including silver bullets.
You know, I've not tried that one yet. It's possible.
Can you wear silver jewelry? I have an aunt who can't wear silver jewelry.
No, I can wear silver jewelry. I can't, unless it's like a necklace that is fairly tight, because I get real anxious if anything is around my neck. Like,
That's a tightness issue, though, right?
Yeah, it's not a silver issue.
All right, allergic to necklaces.
Chokers, specifically.
Yeah.
We're all, in a way, we're all allergic to bullets, silver or not.
Yeah, it's true.
That's very true.
Guys, we watched Firestarter.
Yes.
Did we?
This is our 7th episode, 11th movie, going chronologically through all major Stephen King adaptations, excluding long TV series, student movies, and probably something else that I've just missed.
Yeah.
But so far, we're going okay.
Yeah.
Amanda, because nothing's gone up yet, you haven't heard any of this
Yeah, I'm just...
podcast.
I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah. Nobody does. We're shrouded in mystery. We started this podcast.
Right now.
Yeah. Well, this is my ghost costume. Because we're releasing these for October, I figured, you know,
Yeah.
you gotta...
You have to get in the mood.
Yeah. Hey, guys, have you seen this movie, Firestarter?
Hey! Funny you should say that, because I did watch it this week.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, why did you do that?
This is a beautiful coincidence. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, but I don't know if in a good way.
Okay.
So that actually reminds me what I was going to say, which is that we started this podcast with a thesis, or competing theses, as it were. Theses. Jim threw his theses at me.
Competitively. It's a sport.
Jim came into this believing a two-pronged belief. One, that there was no such thing as a bad Stephen King movie, and that, 2, therefore, there could not be such a thing as a bad Stephen King movie made.
Correct. Correct in that was my belief.
I came in with the belief that most Stephen King movies are bad, and when they're good, it is a rare thing.
Okay.
So far, we're both being proven wrong, which is nice.
I would say on the balance so far, coming into today, we've watched, 11 movies, and only 2 of them have been, I think, bad. Right? Like, Cujo is a real drag, and Children of the Corn is pretty boring with some highlights.
Although I will say that,
the rest have been decent.
On the whole, they've been... Yeah, no, on the whole, they've been way better than I expected.
Yeah.
I will say that, like, there's been an element of, I don't know, like, Creepshow 2 wasn't the best.
Right.
Creepshow didn't have the best stories, although I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And Christine is not, like, top-tier Carpenter, but it's still good. It's still Carpenter.
Good. It's better than other movies.
And we already talked about my distaste for Brian De Palma, but I do admit Carrie is a good movie.
Yeah.
But no, so far it's been at least decent. But there have been a couple of real, I think, harbingers of things to come.
Yes.
We'll see. But the question I want to ask first, before either of us say anything, is, Amanda, if you had to answer which thesis Firestarter supports... What would you say?
Man. Well, it's tricky because I feel so split about Firestarter. Because, I feel
split like a log in a
the
fireplace.
first half supports Jim's thesis and the second half supports your thesis.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree.
I
don't know if I would say half exactly, but I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, it might not be half. It's like it's the point where we switch from like being dad and daughter on the run to like dad and daughter trapped in like a colonial prison basement. That I stopped caring completely, and up until that point, I've been super enjoying it.
Okay.
So I feel like I was really loving the first half, and I still have been thinking about the first half. The second half I can barely remember at this point, and I think I don't know. That's my. I don't know that it supports either thesis really strongly for that reason. Although maybe it's more Jim's or I'm sorry, Jason's.
Jason's, yeah, no, for sure. I will
say though the second half has the most George C. Scott in red face, which is at least memorable.
Yeah,
and. What I thought was fascinating about that run of the movie is that George C. Scott can give a speech, you know? When he's like, I'm going to say 4 lines in a row, you're like, wow, that guy is really saying those lines. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But, like,
He's
his character is such a mistake.
Yes.
He also, you say he's in red face. I thought for the entire movie, until I saw his like, fake native last name in the credits, I thought he was supposed to be Steven Seagal in 2019.
I wasn't
that is who he is dressed as, and that's whose hair he has, and that's how he
They
talks.
don't really lean on it, so I didn't know if you would notice that he was in red face, but he is 100% supposed to be playing a Cherokee.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. The vibe
credits,
I was
he has
getting
the
from
name.
him the whole time was that he was a white dude who had like an unhealthy fascination,
like a weird fetish. Yes,
with like Native Americans.
I think that's the way it plays, for sure.
Yeah. But if that, maybe all along that was just Stephen King. I felt
secretly
like,
the twist is that Stephen King is the one who has the weird obsession with Native Americans.
To be fair, I don't think Stephen King wrote the book and when describing Rainbird said he looks like George C. Scott but with redder skin.
Sure. But I think Amanda is leaning at the general idea that there is sort of a runner of like weird native.
Oh yeah,
I'm not going to say fetishism necessarily, but like, you know, like The Shining is built on a burial ground, and like this guy's a weird magic native man, and I think there might be I don't know. It feels like it's a thing that is slowly developing in the ooze.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't read Firestarter, so I couldn't say how the character develops really there. My understanding is that this is a movie that is faithful almost to a fault to the book in terms
that's what it felt like when you were watching it.
Yeah.
I'd never read the book, but I was like, we're clearly trying to stick to something.
And even I think Stephen King has said that it's his least favorite adaptation, partially because it didn't make itself a movie.
Yeah, it's like they didn't
just
bother
like
to adapt
slavishly copied the book.
And with the case of another movie like Firestarter, which was the book, literally, exactly, point to point, it is the book. I think it's a failure because it doesn't have the sparkle and the life of the novel.
Because I agree with Amanda's assessment where, like, the beginning where it's, like, this, like, lovely father-daughter duo and they're on the run and they're going through this sequence where it's, like, he can control people's brains, but instead they're just being sweet and charming and, like, hanging out with that old farm couple. That whole sequence where they're on that farm with that old couple is so delightful.
I did like the farm couple sequence.
But then they're captured and they're held in this, like, unit and tested, and for that whole stretch it feels like you're like, oh, if I could tell what they were thinking, this might be interesting. But
right.
But like as a thing to observe, it's just so deeply boring for an hour and a half or however long it is. 8 hours.
I have thoughts about that. I have things to say about that. But let's back up for a moment and just say what is a Firestarter?
Just pause it and watch the movie.
I mean, I'm hoping that everybody's watching along with us. But just
God,
the short version.
Man. Can you imagine being like, well, it's October, every day I'm going to watch 2 hours of Stephen King movie and then listen to another 45 minutes of two jackasses talking about Stephen King movies that I just watched? What a nightmare. What a nightmare.
I can think of worse
October.
lives. I can think of worse lives. We could be doing this on John Grisham movies.
Oh, true.
Oh my god, I want that one.
Every day in Grishfember, we're doing a John
Yes,
Grisham.
they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell. That movie only comes around once, though.
I don't know what movie that is.
And then the rest are A Time to Kill, Jim. Samuel L. Jackson's finest moment.
I'm not that cool.
That was heartbreaking. Wait,
so Firestarter.
What is Firestarter?
Firestarter is the story of a psychic dad and his pyrokinetic daughter, meaning she could start fires with her mind, on the run from a shadowy government agency that made them this way and now want to possibly kill them, possibly exploit them. It's not always clear, even within the ranks of that organization. They're on the run for a while. They do a pretty good job, but then they get captured because George C. Scott, playing the world's most violent man and like expert amoral assassin,
in an
is good enough.
Leather jacket with like a tied front.
Yeah. I mean,
his wardrobe is probably the best thing in the whole movie.
He's able to capture them when no one else can because he has some sympathy with the ferocity within the daughter's soul. The daughter being played by a young Drew Barrymore. He becomes killing it. Holy shit! Yeah, we're gonna talk about some Drew. Yeah. He becomes the organization wants the psychics for general organizational purposes. You know, your standard CIA. We want to make a weapon or we want to study things. George C. Scott becomes deeply, creepily, like borderline pedophilically obsessed with Drew Barrymore and the power that is within her, which he deems to be like the godlike power of life and death. And he gets obsessed with both obtaining and befriending that power and also destroying and eating and killing that power. And then the movie goes from there into its violent climax.
He gives a whole speech about how he...
I was going to say, you're missing a crucial piece of information about his kind of violence, which is that he loves to smash people's nose bones into their brains. His signature move is to smack someone in the face and so fragment bone into their frontal lobe.
Yeah,
that's true. Early on, he kills a scientist that's giving the company what do they call themselves? The shop.
The shop.
Yeah.
The shack.
The shop. So there's a scientist in the shop that's giving the leaders of the shop all kinds of guff, and George C. Scott kills him. You think he's going to do it in this way where it's like, he's an expert assassin and nothing will ever trace back to anybody because he's sneaking into his room at night and he's very quiet about it.
But then he
just
waits with a pillow.
He waits for him to wake up, smiles at him, and then karate chops him to death in the face.
Yeah. Again, Jason. Again, Steven Seagal. His character is functionally modern day Steven Seagal. He's obsessed with lavender and shades of indigo, and he dresses
and pretending to be Native American.
Yeah, and he has the ponytail. If it was dyed aggressive black, he would have been exactly Steven Seagal.
Yeah, no,
I
mean
when
that's
I was
true.
watching this character had an effect on like my childhood, even though I never saw the film. It was a huge deal, on the playground at school, to pretend to karate chop people in the face, and then to talk about how the bones bullets were like going into their brain. It was like, watch out, you hit someone hard enough in the nose, you're gonna like, the bones are going to go up into your brain and then you'll die. And I thought that was just like a common weird kid thing. But it would have been like kids who had seen this movie to speak so specifically about that on the playground.
I had that same
experience.
Because
he describes it.
About Smash,
yeah. He describes it explicitly too. That's the thing, because you think then that the way he kills a scientist is just like a fun filmmaker flourish, but then no, the character obsessively talks about how he wants to do that to Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's like his thing. Like Amanda said.
It's a really good speech, I think, where he's talking about, because he also has this like other fake character he plays in the movie, John the Custodian or whatever, and he gives this speech in third person but as his character, where he's talking about how he's going to befriend her, make her happy, which
John
like,
will make her happy.
Yeah, and you're like,
only
is that a super shady sex thing, or is he just gonna like, I don't know. That was really uncomfortable. But then he's like, when she's at her happiest, he's gonna break her nose, and he like fully describes the process of smashing someone's nose bones up into, and then he's like, and she's gonna, and he'll feel the power of her power, and they'll both die. And you're like, okay, so he's planning on smashing her in the nose, and she's gonna set him on fire, and they're both gonna die at the same time. But it's super unclear if he's trying to just wipe the power off the earth, or if he thinks that's gonna make him some kind of god in the afterlife. And I really like that sort of, you're like, oh, I don't know exactly how crazy this man is.
I really like the ambiguity, and it feels weird to say these words, but I like as a choice for this villain to make him absolutely, definitely, like, pedophilically attracted and obsessed with her.
Sure.
Like, it makes him that, it takes him past just, like, shop creep, which is what Martin Sheen's playing, and turns him into this completely other level of not only evil but deranged and like weirdly emotionally involved with the person that he's going to horribly murder.
He's at also, the same time, I wanted. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, it's fine.
No, that's you should.
That's how we work.
At the same time, I really wanted. I agree that there was a really lovely like darkness to him that was unusual and unexpected. But I wanted to maybe suspect there was hope for him to change during that period of time where he is like playing this character and so like becoming her friend, and she believes him wholeheartedly, and the whole time you never doubt that he is maybe like changing how he feels. He stays the same, and he doesn't change at all. And I felt like what was missing was a sense that there was maybe a chance that he would turn around and be on her side. And I wanted to like have that kind of hope for it to hurt more when he like actually is terrible at the end. But instead, he was kind of he was at the same volume the whole time. He was at the same like emotional tenor, and I wanted some variety in there. I wanted him to be a little more I guess flexible, more human. Yeah,
he is. He's just a force, right? He like isn't given the chance to be a character. They're just like, this is the shape of a creature. It is evil, and right. It's just he just goes.
I also think we're dealing with a movie in which that's true of almost everyone in their lane. Nobody changes. Nobody is. Yeah. They are just performing the function that they need to fulfill, like that role in the plot. The closest you get is Drew Barrymore and her squeamishness about using her power.
Yeah.
But they don't really play it like if the movie was done right, you should be absolutely emotionally devastated by what she has to do at the end.
Yes.
In killing all of these people. And instead, it's just a pyrotechnic show.
Yeah. You're also like, oh, finally a thing is happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This movie's really boring. I was shocked, actually, that you said the first half was more interesting, because I almost didn't make it to the second half. And part of that is because, while Drew absolutely is killing it, and I still want to spend a lot of time talking about the degree to which she's killing it, the dude playing her dad...
David Keith, famous actor David Keith, thank you.
Sure, yeah. David Keith, famous... for no good reason.
Well, because he's almost Keith David.
Sure. He's so boring and so bad at acting that none of those scenes worked for me, except for like the farm couple, and that's because the farm couple's great.
The farm couple is so good.
I didn't buy a single thing he did in the whole movie.
See, I read, and this is me maybe being generous. I read Andy, the dad, as being an inept dope, and that's part of why she is in so much danger.
Absolutely,
is that he's terrible at everything, and so I read that as like this like flaw in the character. But also, it's true that I don't know if he could have played it any other way.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. Like, I think that is a flaw in the character, but I still, like, you can play a dope, or you can play somebody who's not really competent at this. 'Cause I actually kind of like that, because most people thrust into a situation like that are not going to be competent at all the things they need to do to survive. It's one of those, movie things that people become hyper competent, and it's nice to have a movie where people are sort of fumbling through and they're just scraping by, and they don't really, like, they have this amazing thing that they can do, but they don't really know how to make the best use of it.
Also, his
I'm
idea
down with
to save
all of
them.
that.
His idea to save them is just to tell newspapers, which is a terrible idea.
Well,
it's a full nonsense idea.
To be fair, this was 1984, and we thought that would still work.
Is that true? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe there was more optimism. The movie ends with her murdering everybody and then going back to that beautiful farm couple, and I was like, oh, she's going to get the normal life, which is the thing she wanted, to be a normal person. And then they're like, just kidding, we're going to go tell the New York Times. And you're like, what are you doing? Now she's going to get pulled back into a lab. Just raise her like a little lady Superman.
Yeah.
Jim, you said something when you watched it that I think is probably true, which is that I suspect the original ending was just, Jason's gone.
Yeah, you left. It's okay. We can keep talking.
Right.
I'm here. I'm back.
Hey.
Raise her like a lady Superman was the last thing I heard.
Oh, okay. I suspect that something Jim said when we watched it was that that ending where we see them go to the New York Times feels like something that was filmed after they got a bad audience test screening, where people were like, but what happened? Like what about the plot? And it felt like they were like, we need to tie up this last little thing, when all I really wanted for her to do was just feed chickens for the rest of her life.
Right?
Yeah. That much I do know is from the book. Although in the book...
Oh, really?
I'm not sure, because I haven't read it. I'm not sure. I just read about it. I don't know if he actually has a scene where she goes. It's probably just handled in narration of what she decided to do, and it's not shown in the book. The one thing that is fun about it is that she doesn't go to the New York Times. She decides to go to Rolling Stone because she decides that they're more impartial.
That's really funny.
And have better political reporting.
Real zing from Stephen King.
Yeah. But then, of course, if it's a movie, it's the New York Times. But yeah, this definitely used to be a thing in movies. It seems so quaint now, but movies always used to... I definitely grew up believing that if you could just get the information to the newspapers, then you could stop whatever was happening.
Well, there are also contexts where that makes sense, but when it's this one person has crazy superpowers that are outside of the realm of normal humanity, and scientists want to do tests on them, then I think the newspaper would report that, and everyone would be like, yes, you should do tests on them. You know what I mean? It's I
think it was also reporting about how they did it to them. It's basically reporting on MK Ultra.
Okay. But also, I don't think... Does Drew Barrymore know that story at the end of the movie? What is she going to tell them? She's going to be I'm 6.
I don't know. I mean, for all I know, she knows everything. Maybe her dad passed everything onto her psychically. I don't know.
If they were going to put a button on this movie, it should have been a button where it cuts to her at 16 years old tending the farm and then, warming up a pot of food because she was out feeding the cows too late and everyone already ate breakfast. You know what I mean?
And she just sweetly smiles and says to herself,
warms it up and then eats
back
some.
off.
Yeah. Back off, baby.
Yes. Yeah.
Roll credits.
Do you want to talk about Drew?
Just imagining that.
Right? It's a way better ending. You would have to change the rest of the movie also, but Jason, I have to make an admission to you, which is that we, starting with the first episode of this terrible, terrible podcast that we're doing, we talked about the movies we had seen, and this was on my list of movies I had seen, but when I started watching this, I realized that, in fact, I didn't see this movie. My sister saw it and described it to me,
Oh, that's amazing.
When we were both children. She was probably 11 and I was 8 or something. That math works. And so my perception of it, I was just thinking about this because whenever you describe the movie, you sort of describe him as a psychic and her as a pyrokinetic, which is when my sister described it. So my conception of this was that he could just make people blind and she could only set fires, and that there was a guy who was chasing them who would punch people's nose bones into their brains and kill them. But in fact, he only does that punch one time and then describes it in great detail later. And the dude can make people do anything. I feel like that's an important distinction. He can make people do or see or think whatever. And Drew Barrymore seems to have whatever powers she needs, but is the most in touch with the firepower. I think that's an important, because she knows when they're coming for them, and she can sort of see into the future. It seems like she has sort of ill-defined other psychic powers, right?
Well, she's the genetic product of the two strongest outputs of that program, right? Andy and Heather Locklear.
And Morgan Fairchild. Oh, right, Heather Locklear. I was going to say Morgan Fairchild, but that's just a different person they reference on Wayne's World. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Jim, I feel like you bring up a good point, which is that the rules of their supernatural powers feel flexible in order to be convenient, but limitless in a way that lowers the stakes.
Sure.
Constantly. I'm never worried that they're not going to get out of this situation.
Well, right, the only obstacle in the whole movie, right, is that in the middle they put the dad on drugs where he doesn't have access to his power.
Or and then he's just pretending not to have access to his powers. Yeah,
it's hard to tell, right? But then he's I'm going to stop taking these drugs. Now I have my powers again. Hey, guy who's in charge of everybody, let's get out of here. And the guy who's in charge of everybody's sure, okay. It's as soon as they have their powers, there is no obstacle at all.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about something that could have been handled probably in 2 minutes worth of film as opposed to 22.
That whole middle section of the movie?
Just of the whole plot of him taking the drugs and then being forced to take more drugs and then being tested and then talking to himself in the mirror about how he's not going to take drugs and then not taking drugs and then, oh my god, it took forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything in this movie took forever. It felt like slow. 6 hours long.
Mm-hmm. I got real bored near the end.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of things taking forever, it felt to me like Drew Barrymore's magic firepower, or her psychic firepower, took a really long time to start. She's a fire starter, but it's a slow
every time she
start.
does it?
Yeah, every time she does it, it takes a while, and it takes long enough that I don't quite buy that it's something that would be as dangerous to people as you think. There's enough time for people to get away from her. There's enough time for
to move out of her gaze.
Yeah, or to shoot her with another dart and send her to sleep. It seems
well, Amanda, you should probably consider though, is there enough time for them to stand and scream no, 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 please no, yes. And also get away from her?
That's true.
Probably not. You're right.
There are social applications involved in being set on fire.
Yeah. One thing I really love was the way in which her hair gets blown out of her face when she's using her power.
Yeah.
So she
it
can see
almost
better.
seems like we changed lenses. And her hair is maybe a wig in those moments. And there's air coming at her from in front of her. And those moments were great. I loved those beats where she's
absolutely
becoming psycho Drew Barrymore.
Yeah,
I agree that those are nice, and I also feel like this is just me and my 2019. I grew up in eating whatever media I ate, but I always want things like that to go. I feel like if her hair in those moments was oh god, I don't even know the reference I want. In Singing in the Rain, there's that lady and she dances and the train on her dress is 30 feet long and flying in the air. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, in that weird bridge moment.
Yeah, if her hair was like that, if they were we cut to her and now her hair is 20 feet long and blowing up you know what I mean? For me, that's the best version of those. I wish they pushed harder. You know what I mean? If you're gonna make her hair inexplicably longer, why stop? That's what I want.
I honestly would really like to take this movie and trim out 35 minutes.
Sure.
and like cut it down into something much more svelte, because I think
least.
it has some really nice beats, and it has some like I want the farm family to be more central. I want like certain human interactions to be more central. I want to trim down Redface. What's his name?
George C.
Rainbird?
Scott.
Yeah.
Who knows?
See, it's hard for me to argue for ever losing any George C. Scott.
Yes, but
because I have to say I was most entertained when he was on screen.
Sure. Amanda, you had mentioned also earlier something, I don't exactly remember, but like a restructuring where you were thinking about like killing the dad earlier and like putting her big fire moment more in the center of the film, so that then, because what's interesting, right, is like her grappling with
becoming a monster.
Yeah, unless there's an actual obstacle that can stop them, which there isn't, right, in this movie, then what is interesting is them coping with it. And, like, he doesn't have to, but she does. And so, like, putting that big murder everyone in the whole compound moment more central, then you have a second half of a movie with the best actor in the film, Drew Barrymore, coping with her destructiveness. Yeah,
absolutely. I feel like the like level of destruction that she's capable of, we needed to know earlier that she could do that. And I do feel like she was most interesting. She was interesting the whole time. Can we right now talk about her performance?
Yes.
Because she blew me away. She was amazing. I felt like there was like there's a quality to children, to young actors today. A lot of them have been trained on like a Disney model of performance that's very stagey and very like you're indicating a lot.
Sure.
And there was something about her that felt like she wasn't even thinking about acting. She was just like, oh, and now I respond. She was reacting the whole time. Which felt really natural to me. There were certain beats where you could tell that like something weird was going on set, or maybe she was like unhappy that day. She was being a kid, and you could tell that she was like a little more stagey. And I think that often was when they were in the shop, and she like wasn't interacting out in the world. But for the most part, I thought she was amazing.
Yeah.
Some of those are probably like, she's like acting against Martin Sheen, and he was goofing it up, and they were like, all right, 8th take, and she was like, ugh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I bet.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned that Martin Sheen's in this movie yet.
He's almost in this movie. He's more like set dressing. He's a mood more than a character.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He blows through like a stiff breeze.
Yeah, which is too bad, because there's that lovely sequence when they introduce him where he's just riding his bicycle on the grounds of this.
I know. I got so excited for that.
Yeah, which was so fun. And then he goes in and he's just Martin Sheen again.
Yeah. He just gets overwhelmed by George C. Scott.
Which makes sense. George C. Scott didn't seem like he was acting with anybody. He was very much like, and I am here. I fill up everything.
Yeah. But no, just to get back to Drew, I feel like I feel like I finally got the stardom that she achieved as a kid, because I'd never seen this movie. I'd seen E.T., I'd seen other stuff, but this really was like, I mean, she's fine, but she's younger, and she's just like a cute machine in E.T. This is a real job, and you can also tell why, or at least partially why, she maybe had some trouble later on, because no child should actually have to go through the emotional experience of acting like that to that level in a role like this or in a movie like this. This is, Amanda, another runner in this show, but I had a really hard time watching her scenes, because I apparently can't watch children be sad or in danger anymore.
I believe that.
I'm a father.
Oh, so you had a hard time, like, personally.
Yeah, like I had a hard time watching it, of just like, I don't even like this movie, but I can't deal with the emotions that I'm feeling right now for her. And like, on her behalf. Honestly, I don't think I mentioned it yesterday, but Children of the Corn, even as terrible and clumsy as that was, when there were the moments of like, oh man, maybe they're going to kill some kids, I was like, no, that's not, I can't deal. But she was so good and so I think you really hit the nail on the head when you're talking about how she's reacting all the time. She's so open and responsive to what's happening that I was so terrified for her, not just physically, but emotionally, constantly.
Yeah, I agree. And you know immediately that she's gone through some shit. There's that beat in is it the airport where she's like, and I killed mommy. Like she's like, this is like heavy material.
Oh yeah.
And how old was she? Like 7, 8? I'm gonna say she was probably like 9.
Yeah.
But it was a lot, and she was acting against grown adult men who were all of their characters were like failing her deeply in some way, if not outright exploiting her.
Or like preying on her.
Yeah. No, I can imagine watching a lot of things is probably hard now that you're a parent. Evolutionarily, like the world, all of your like internal indicators are like protect this.
Yeah, it's been surprising me how extreme it's been. And I keep thinking that when I recognize it, then I can put it away. Because I can watch all kinds of stuff, but now I just like, man, if there's kids and something bad might happen to them, I am not into it.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to mention that the way she was styled here was really nice.
All of her outfits are solid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her outfits and the way they were dealing with her hair, I feel like you couldn't see a kid like leading a feature film and be that like messy. And that was like legitimate messy. They didn't brush her hair on purpose. And I feel like there's a certain level of like a child in current content is only protectable or like can only really be a hero in that sense if they are like very specifically styled and like you would see and this is I'm talking about like mainstream action type movies like kid characters are like Disney cute.
Yes.
And they were letting her be like a kid who like looks like they're not really getting a lot of like hygiene. And I think it made her feel even more real, and I was really into it.
Yeah, for sure. There's enough things about this movie like that it really bums me out that the whole thing just kind of lays there.
Yeah.
And is so long, and it's so just it doesn't ever really come to life.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
There's so many good elements. And they just never pull together.
The threats of these, the threats that these like psychics pose in the world of Firestarter are almost biblical. They like jump from being like geopolitical to being like fire and brimstone, which is interesting because that's also how Rainbird's character works. It's very like he jumps to like primal, like deep, almost like animal fable sort of threats. Of like, I want to see the power in her eyes and carry it with me into the underworld. Like that's some like biblical dark stuff. And I thought that was really interesting to see play out in a situation where there's a secret government organization, but the government seems to have no power. Also, Jim made a really nice observation when we watched it, which was that all of the bad guys at the shop are wearing different kinds of suits instead of all wearing the same suit, which you would see today. Like what's scary is the uniformity of all the Agent Smiths in the Matrix. But in this particular situation, they all look like they came from different offices in different, like on different blocks in Chicago. And so
it's just a bunch of bureaucrats.
Yeah. And that's all menacing in a different way because it's like the world conspiring against you instead of like a single organization conspiring.
Again, the eccentricity suggested by Martin Sheen on the bicycle at the beginning could have had a lot more follow through.
Yes.
And it's also gesturing to it with the different outfits.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm
I think it's time for the fire ender, Jason.
I think it is too.
This fire.
I really, I don't want to be proven right, but I think we're heading into the doldrums, Jim.
No, this was a bad spot in a great run.
What was yesterday?
More. It was the same. It was the prelude to the bad spot.
We'll see. We'll see where it goes. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you,
It was
Medium.
my pleasure. Good luck on the rest of your October journey.
Ugh.
Can you live near to Jim? Can you check on him in a few weeks and just make sure he's alive?
Yeah, I try to do that every couple of weeks. I'll just make sure to let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I talk enough that I could call him and just have the whole my side of the conversation and not realize that he's not responding.
No, I do worry sometimes that something's fallen on him. I'll check.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, this has been the Weekender for Hell to the King. We will start a new week next week, tomorrow. It's time means nothing and space is a myth. Join us in our deep, dark hell of our own making.
To the king.
To the hell of our own making.
Ooh.
Oh. Ooh.
Hell to the King is a special presentation of the Cinesthesia podcast, produced by Iguanadonald Studios, and distributed by Split Tooth Media. Music by Loyalty Freak. Hell to the King is recorded before a live studio audience. Our studio is made of cardboard, and it is on the sidewalk outside Stephen King's house in Bangor, Maine. Hey, Stephen. Look out the window. Look at us, Stephen. Look at what you've done.
No.
I
Please,
forgot.
no.
No, yeah.